Give yourself grace.
Mm.
Give the teams that you work with, the clients, the customers that you work with, give people grace. This world is crazy. You never know what somebody might be going through, and maybe they're not comfortable or willing to be vulnerable. You don't know what's in the background. So that's another thing I always tell my team members. We don't always know what people are going through.
Welcome to the Confident Podcast. I am Lisa Tarkington, your guide to mastering confidence and leadership. As the business and life coach, keynote speaker, and the driving force behind LEAD, I am here to help you break free from self-doubt, silence the imposter syndrome, and step into your power as the person you're meant to be. If you press play today, it's because you're ready for something bigger. Each week, I'll bring you real, raw conversations and actionable insights that will empower you to redefine your leadership, reclaim your confidence, and transform into the unstoppable force you've always known that you could be. This isn't just another podcast. It's a journey we're on together. So buckle up and let's dive into this transformation. Your next level awaits. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of the Confident Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Tarkington, and today we are going to have one incredible guest. We are going to be talking about leadership, being clear. We are going to be talking about communication and different ways to be transparent, being vulnerable, and how all of these things are strengths when it comes to your leadership. You know, and when we were thinking about this and having this conversation, a couple of things that came up for me was, as leaders, we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves many times. We think we have to know all the answers. We think we have to be perfect. We think we have to have it all together. But a lot of us are still figuring it out. People that have been doing this for 20 years is still figuring it out. And sometimes it's because they haven't gotten feedback over the years of the type of leadership that maybe their company needs or their employees need. And so they've had to up and flow with things. And so today we're going to be talking a lot about, like, what is your leadership style? What do you want that to be? And how does that resonate with individuals as well? The other key thing that we're going to be talking about is how feedback is a gift. And we've probably talked a lot about this on all episodes of the podcast because I just find it so important when it comes to leadership. And all of these things go back to confidence. It goes back to you become a more confident leader when you're putting the reps in, when you're asking for feedback, and when you're growing in your communication. And I'm so excited to have a guest on today because it's not just going to be me talking about this stuff. It's going to be an amazing guest who is Nikki Little. She is the Senior Vice President of Franco, and she's also the co-owner of them. And she has such an amazing background in communications and PR. I can't wait for you guys to hear about her story. But I think the other cool thing about it is when we're in skill sets, when we're experts in a certain skill, like for her, it's PR and communications, she also has to be a leader. She also has to learn a lot of soft skills that's going to help her be that leader. It's self-awareness, it's growth mindset, it's how do I communicate, it's effective communication, it's how do I get rid of that inner critic when it kind of comes up, and how do I really slow down and delegate and be strategic with my time. And you're going to hear all about this today, but I also wanted to share is after you listen today, if you are like, I need to work on these things, there's two different resources that I want you to think about utilizing. The first one is the Lead Within platform from LEAD, which is the organization that I run. We have a whole platform that can really help you gain these skills. It's just a subscription. It's our membership platform. And the stories that I've heard from individuals using this to really help them, not only in their career, but also their leadership, is a game changer. So I want you to check that out. And in the show notes, we will also have a code for you so that you can get 50% off your first month. The second thing is if you want one-on-one coaching and you really want to dive into your leadership skills, I am the girl for you. I love helping individuals. I've worked with, many multi-million dollar companies, small businesses, as well as people that are entrepreneurs as well, to really help them grow in these skills, because I think leadership is such a game changer when you have the right skills in place. You also can set your team up for success as well as yourself. And so I am so excited for today's conversation. So let's dive into it. All right, everybody, I am so thrilled to welcome our guest for today, which is Nikki Little, the Senior VP and co-owner of Franco. Nikki, welcome to the Confident Podcast. I am so freaking pumped to chat today.
Me too. Thank you. This is a favorite topic of mine. So I was very excited when you reached out about
Yes,
joining you.
it's going to be so fun. So I guess let's start by, so a lot of our guests probably don't know who you are and a little bit of your background. So tell us where kind of like your journey has led you to be really focused on leadership and communications, I would say.
Yes. So going back to college, I went to Central Michigan University, Fire Up Chips. They have an amazing integrative PR program there. So I went through that program, got my degree, got lucky to get a job right after I graduated, which actually happened to be at Franco. So I started my career, yes, at Franco in January of 2007, the same year that Twitter launched. So quickly became very infatuated and obsessed with social media and understanding how it would impact PR in the communications industry. So I spent a little over 3 years at Franco. And at that time, understandably so, a lot of clients were hesitant to use social media. They didn't understand it. They weren't ready to invest in it. So I was starting to get a little restless and wanted to experiment with social media a little more. So I had the opportunity to go to another local agency where they were building a social media practice within the agency. So I was the second person that came on board there to the social media team. Spent almost 8 years there, was the social media director there by the time I left. And at that point, I had spent almost 11 years in agency. I did internships in college and agency. So that was the only experience I ever had. And I wanted to try something different. So I ended up going in-house at what at that time was a startup. They did events and workshops for financial advisors. I was their first communications director. So I took everything that I had learned from my time at Franco and then at the other agency and really came in with this very well-rounded integrated communications experience. So I helped them get a lot of things aligned and in order where the sales team was doing one thing, the marketing team was doing another thing. So I kind of brought my communications background of let's integrate and align everything that you're doing. So I did that for almost 2 years. And from my time at Franco, I had stayed in close contact with our now CEO, Tina Kozak. She and I were great friends. She has always been my professional mentor. So she kind of came back to me and said, I think I have a role for you at Franco. We should talk. So after a couple months of talking, stars aligned, I was able to come back in a leadership role at Franco and really help them get past the 1 yard line of where they were at with kind of rebranding from a more traditional PR agency into an integrated communications agency. So I started back at Franco in September of 2019. Pandemic hit, everything turned upside down, but we got through it and here I am today.
Wow. Well, congrats on like full circle. A lot of people don't do that.
Yes, we actually have a couple people. I have another team member who started at Franco back in like 2010, spent a couple years there, and then came back to us about 3 years ago. So there have been a few people. So to us, that's the true testament of you had a great experience here. You kind of stayed in our network, and if and when the opportunity is right, you can come back.
That's awesome. And so just for the audience sake, for people that aren't PR, social media gurus, tell me a little bit more about what integrated communications means, because I think that it's a word that you don't hear a lot. People think like the traditional or the digital, or they think just social media is marketing, but I'd love your take on that.
Yes, absolutely. So we follow what is called the PESO model, which is essentially integrated communication. So that is combining paid, earned, shared, and owned content all together. And when that all comes together and combines and everything is aligned and integrated, that is integrated communication. So the founder of the PESO model is Ginny Dietrich. She owns an agency called SpinSucks. She created this several years ago, over 10 years ago now, I think. She has a website that is phenomenal. So if anybody listening to this is in communications and PR and was like, I want to learn more about this PESO model, go to SpinSucks. There's a ton of content on there. So we adopted that model because again, it makes a ton of sense. Now, like gone are the days where you can put all your eggs into one basket and see a ton of results, right? So there has to be some combination, and it's not the same for every company, but some investment in that paid, earned, shared, and owned, and ensuring that everything is aligned and working toward common goals, common KPIs.
I love that. And also, as many entrepreneurs, including myself, like we have squirrel brain.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, I have an idea, but it's like, okay, how does that connect? Right. And
Right.
that is so fascinating to me because I mean, I have a background in PR before I took the leap, and it has changed dramatically over the years.
Absolutely.
So kudos
Yes.
for you guys for continuously trying to evolve, or not trying, are evolving, right?
Yes.
Like into that
Yes. Thank you.
space. So when it comes to your role now, so you're obviously really an expert in the communications space. Communication also can be played into a lot of leadership, right? And so tell us a little bit about your leadership right now. But I'm gonna, before you answer that, I would love for you to share, like, take us back, right? Because I think
Yes.
sometimes it's great to be like, I have it all figured out now, or I don't.
Hmm.
But I think, no, I don't think I've ever talked to a leader that's like, yeah, from day one, I had it all figured out. So if you'd share a little bit with us, that'd be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So going back to when I was first at Franco, I was kind of quickly grew there. Within my 3-ish years there, I'd been promoted twice, which was amazing
That's
for
awesome.
somebody young in their
Hmm.
career. So I very distinctly remember I kind of aligned more on the consumer side, working more with our consumer clients. And a colleague of mine, she and I were kind of put as the leads of consumer because we loved it. We were doing great at it, but we're like 23 years old, right? So I loved that we got that empowerment and that opportunity, but we were like, I don't know what we're doing. So I can remember I worked with a credit union client, and the main client lead, male in his 60s, he would not have a phone call with us unless my manager was on the call.
Mm.
And again, I get it, right? Like, who is this 20 something coming in and telling me how we should be doing communications and PR for our business? But I knew that he didn't trust me as a leader on that account, and it really impacted my confidence at that time because that's where the imposter syndrome starts, right? It's like I have my leadership team here at Franco telling me you can do this, we want you to do this, you understand this, but then the clients are not as trusting or not as willing to listen to somebody who is kind of not at their same level. So it started there, but it was great in getting my feet wet. And then as I kind of grew in my social media leadership management role, when I went to the other local agency, I started managing people. And I will tell you, anybody in a management leadership position will identify with this. When you start going from the person who is managing all the work, executing all the work, and then you have to start learning how to pull back, delegate, lead, that is hard. It's very hard.
Amen.
And right, type A, super
Yes.
organized, controlling person right here. I'm like, well, we got to do it the way I've always done it because I know
Mm.
that works, right? And then we have to start learning how to let other people step in and do things and trusting that maybe they'll do something that's not exactly the way that you would have done it, but that doesn't mean that it won't work. It's super hard. And I used to really struggle kind of living in that gray area. I was a black and white person before. I was like, it's either this or it's this. There is nothing in the middle. And that's hard when you have to evolve into a leadership role because it's murky. It's not always black and white. And sometimes you have to test different things. And sometimes you have to try one thing and then pivot. So I learned a lot in those formative years of figuring out, again, how to go from doing and executing to guiding, mentoring, teaching, delegating. And it was rocky for a while. Like it was rocky. I questioned myself, team members questioned me. So, but all good things. And it kind of led me to where I am today and developing the leadership style that I have today, which I know you have some questions on it. So I won't go too deep into that right now, but it's all part of the process. But anybody who tells you that they didn't go through some of that trickiness, stickiness, toughness in their leadership journey, it's just not true because it doesn't just click from day one.
Yeah, you gave me hot flashes as you were talking about like the rockiness, right? It's so funny. Many of my clients will say, like, I want to be strategic. I want to be a better leader. I want to have more confidence in my team, but they can't let go. Right.
Right.
And I tell anybody in that situation, because I'm still in those situations sometimes, it's like, it is uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
uncomfortable. And I always tell people that in order to get to where you want, you have to be okay with that piece because it's the only time to learn.
Right. And you have to be okay with making mistakes yourself, and you
Yes.
have to be okay with your team members making mistakes. I still struggle with this today.
Mm.
Like, my Tina Kozak, our CEO, she's my manager, and she tells me often, you need to just let people figure it out, right? Like, you need to just let, and I'm like, but I don't want them to fail. I don't want them to make mistakes. If I see this, she's like, no, no, no. Like, you hold back, right? I want to save people. I want to help
Mm.
people. I'm a people pleaser, but I have learned that I've got to let people figure it out on their own. And of course, I would never let something that was critical fall
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
cracks, right? But if I'm like, yep, I see that email sitting there that's been like 24 hours, I've had to really restrain myself from nudging people, poking people, because then that turns into micromanagement. And then it's like parenting too. If you're always saving your children, they're not going to learn how to be independent and how to have autonomy on their own. So they got to figure it out.
Yeah, and they'll always rely on you, right? And so
Yes.
I'm actually going to ask you, okay, so you restrain yourself from it, but like how? Because I think so, right? Like I think that that's the thing
Yes.
too is like we always hear from our listeners like I love when we just have tangible tools because I bet anybody listens like, yep, I can feel that way too or they're feeling it when their boss does it. Right? And so I
Yes.
guess the twofold here is what do you do? And then what should a person do if they're seeing their boss doing this as well?
Yes. So what I do is I kind of keep track, right? So if I know something's due to a client or I see an email that came through and like not urgent, doesn't need to be responded to right now, I do a lot of notes, like note
Okay.
taking, list taking. I use Evernote. I live by that. I have my physical planner. So that's kind of how I keep track of a lot of things. So I just jot things down and I'm good at keeping track of things. Like you said, I'm super really well organized. I kind of have this blend of being able to see the forest through the trees, but also like very detail oriented. So a lot of times I'll just take note of it. And then, like I said, if it gets to be past 24 hours, 48 hours, I might nudge that person and just say, like, hey, just a reminder. Or sometimes on some of our client accounts, we have project managers. So I might nudge them and say, like, hey, I need to make sure you're staying on top of this person to do that so that it's not always me.
Yeah.
And then that empowers that person too of like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to make sure like that's my role. I'm staying on top of,
Yeah.
are we responding to things? Are we getting deliverables? Are we answering questions? So that's how I do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not possible to do it all the time. So sometimes, things just fall through the cracks a little bit. And it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm sorry, I missed this email. It's not often, but like I said, I would never do it if it was something urgent that came through. That is where I would step in. And if something urgent came through and something wasn't getting attended to, I would let my team
Yeah.
members know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then your question of if somebody's manager is doing this to them, you just got to have a conversation
Mm.
with them. And that's not easy. And it's also not easy if the manager's style, if they are not open to feedback and if they shut down or if they get defensive. So I get it. That's hard, but nothing will change unless you bring it to the surface. So I always encourage people. I always tell my team too, if I'm doing something or not doing something that's working or not working, I just need you to tell me because if it sits there and it bubbles up for too long, you're harboring frustration, it impacts our relationship, it impacts your work. So the best thing you can do is just talk about it and say, hey, like this really isn't working for me. Can we talk through a solution?
Yeah, I love that. And, those are hard conversations for some, but those are just conversations.
Right.
Right? They don't need to be hard. And so anybody tuning into that we did an episode a couple months ago on this exact thing because conflict resolution, having hard conversations, they all come in the workplace. Right.
Right.
And so I'm going to switch a little bit over to another topic that kind of really has to do with leadership, and that is vulnerability. And so when is there a time in your life? So like, obviously we have tools, we have things that we're like, okay, like as a leader, we're always working on things, but I also have seen like, where do we find that line when it comes to vulnerability? So when has vulnerability strengthened your leadership, I would say?
Yes. So definitely anytime I've admitted to making a mistake
Mm.
and been open and honest about that, I can think of a particular time too, and this was about my first year at Franco, and this was when we went virtual. We were in like the heat of the pandemic, and I started to go back to some of those bad habits of not micromanaging so much, but like maybe checking in a little too much and doing what I just explained you should not do, right? Like an email would come in, it'd be like 10 minutes. I'd be like, okay, hey, who's doing this? And we need to do this because I move at a fast pace. My brain goes fast. I was not giving my team time to even react to anything. So at that time, there were two kind of newer in their career people who went to Tina Kozak and was just like, you gotta tell Nikki to chill out. And they knew me, so they're like, I know she's coming from a good place. I know we are in this unknown of working virtually and doing our best to be the best possible partners to our clients. Our plans have all just been scrapped. We're scrambling. We're creating new plans and strategies because everything that we had outlined is different now, right? So they knew that I wasn't coming from a bad place, but they were like, she's driving us nuts.
Yeah.
So, I appreciated that they talked to Tina about that. Tina talked to me and I was like, oh yeah, they're right, but I'm just like, I'm trying to help everyone, so I was like, I told both of them, we talked, I said, thank you so much. I'm not doing this because I don't trust you. This is just all unknown to us, but that helped me to slow down, take a step back and let them handle things and trust that if they needed support, they would come to me. I literally have a sticky note at the bottom of my monitor over here that says slow down.
Mm.
Slow down. I've had this here for years, maybe since that happened actually, because that's when I make mistakes too. When I move too fast, when I allow my brain to go on overdrive and think about a million things at one time, I start making mistakes. So it is a conscious effort. It has gotten better over the years. It has definitely helped improve me as a leader and a manager too, but I have to really work at slowing down.
I think I'm getting mirrored right now by everything that you're saying. Because if you were to ask my staff these questions,
Yeah,
my brain goes a miles a minute, right?
right.
And you just think about like, okay, like how do I let go? Even though you have your mind going 24/7. And this is
Hmm.
something that I really think is also something when it comes to confidence, when it comes to mental health, when it comes
Yes,
to just like balance of life. When you're someone that goes at a like lightning speed, not everybody does.
right.
Right. And learning how to work through that, being honest with yourself too, of like, okay, I'm my own breed. Everybody's their own breed. Right. And so,
Right.
like, how do we all work together? So I love that, like, I love when leaders are also open to change and open to it
Yes,
because any leader that I work with that is open to that, you see the game changers in their lives, right?
right.
And the other thing that I think is really important, and we both know who Brene Brown is, and her tagline, "Clear is kind," is
The
like
best.
chef's kiss. Like, love
Yes.
it. It's super simple. And so when you think about like that clear is kind is like, how do you apply that principle into your leadership and communications?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is, right? It's not beating around the bush. You can balance direct with empathy. You can balance confidence with compassion, but it's not beating around the bush. It's not taking 5 minutes to say something that can be said in 1 minute because then people don't understand what you're saying. We had leadership training that we did a couple years ago where we got this great feedback from the coach that we were using where she said don't sandwich negative feedback in between positive feedback. So it's easy when it's uncomfortable, right? Like who likes having uncomfortable
Totally.
conversations? I don't care if you've been managing, leading people for 40, 50 years. It's not natural. It doesn't feel good to have uncomfortable conversations. So her recommendation, which was brilliant, was don't start a conversation if you have to give constructive feedback. Don't start with, so this is going really, really well. And I love how you're doing this. You did this so great. Here's the thing that really, you need to work on this. Oh, but this is really good too. Because then you just sandwiched it. So if you're that person receiving the feedback, what are you going to focus on? You're going to
Yes.
focus on the two positive things and be like, okay, yeah, there was some feedback that was wedged in there, but That doesn't work. So if there is something that needs to be improved upon, if somebody made a mistake, if somebody didn't meet expectations on something, that's where that clearest kind feedback comes in. Be super clear about what was missed, what needed to be done, what needs to be done in the future. But again, that can be combined with compassion.
Agree. I love how you just referenced the shit sandwich too. Let's be honest here. That's what I call it.
Yes.
And I think the other thing that kind of comes with that is and I shared this on a past episode, is we care so much, right? We care so much. So we want them to also know that we value them for a lot of the
Right.
great things that they're doing. But because of communication, people can get lost in the words. And
Right.
so when you, I would say, like, had that long-winded answer, or that, you know, that positive in between, or positive over top of the negative, like, what do you fixate on, right? And
Right.
what do you really hear? And then if you don't talk about those things and the feedback that you actually want to give, you're going to get mad if it happens again.
Right.
Because you weren't clear in the beginning,
Correct.
right? And I know from reference from my own life, like, I could probably talk really fast when it came to the negative, because I just wanted to get it
Yes.
out of this.
Just want to get through it.
Yeah, I just want to get through it. And they're like, okay. And then it happened again. And I was like, was I not clear? And I wasn't.
Right.
Right. And so these are all things that, as leaders, like, I always say to employees to give grace to their leaders, because a lot of them are learning.
Yes.
But it's also like feedback both ways. Like, I always ask people, like, what is the expectation that you have of your leader? And what is the expectation your leader has of you? And if that's not
Right.
clear, have that conversation, because you should
Exactly.
also have expectations of your leader.
Yes.
Because if they don't know how to
100%.
lead you and what you need, they're going to be doing their style all the time. And then you're going to get
Right.
frustrated.
Right. Yeah. And then that's when people quit, right? Like, they're
Yes.
not happy. They're not getting what they need from their leader, from their manager. The styles don't connect. And
Yes.
again, not everybody's style has to be the same, right? Like, we have to learn how to work with people, how to be collaborative with people who have very different work styles, leadership styles. It's possible. It's very possible. But that what comes down to kind of knowing each other, appreciating each other, having those clear, candid, direct conversations, and then working through it when things aren't going well, right? Because, like I mentioned before, if you just sit there and don't have the conversation, you're harboring frustration, you're not feeling good, it reflects in your work, it reflects in your interactions with that person, and that's not good for anyone.
Yeah. And so how do you think that you've gained confidence in your leadership? Because, you know, what you shared in the beginning is, I can hear you're the expert when it comes to communications and brand, like, right? Like, because you've done that for so many years. And so, like, how did you gain that confidence in leadership? And when did you know that you were confident there?
It's the same as gaining the experience and confidence in communications. It's by doing it.
Mm.
It's by doing it wrong. It's by doing it well. It's by taking positive feedback and building on those things that you're doing well, and taking the constructive feedback, like the example that I gave before, right? But it is so imperative that as leaders, we are taking the feedback and working to make a change, right?
Mm.
Like, and you know, there are things where some things it's like, we're running a business, right? So if you're like, I don't like that after 48 hours that I didn't respond to that email, that you nudged me on that. Well, I'm sorry, but we're in a client service business, so I have to, right? So
Yes.
there are lines there, but like you said before, we have to be open to evolving, changing, maybe changing different leadership styles based on how a person prefers to receive feedback. Or, you know, I know there are some people who, if I gave them something in the moment, they would freeze and they would not do well with that. And if something happened, then I need to maybe let that sit for a minute and marinate for a minute, and then we have a follow-up conversation about it. So yeah, it comes with experience, but it has to be intentional. You have to work at it. You have to take the feedback from the people who you're leading and kind of mesh that with your own style.
Yeah. And I think what you brought up too, and what kind of came to my mind, is you have to know your leadership style too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because
Yes.
if you're going to bend to other people, you also need to be able to say, well, this is how my style is. This is the way that I work, because
Right.
that's like, we always go back to our default leadership style. So
Yes.
that's never going to change. We just bend on what we need in that
Yes.
moment. And you also brought up something else too, which I thought was great, is we have to take the feedback that we get and filter. I'm a big filter on the feedback that we get because, again, all of us in leadership positions are running businesses. You're
Right.
running a function, you're running a business. The thing that came to my mind was the accountability piece, right? Because if we're expecting our staff to be accountable for X goals or things, we have to be accountable back of, okay, I heard your feedback. Now what am I going to do about it? And then just
Right.
being clear, back to clear is kind, right? Being
Yes.
clear, like I heard this, but again, we have a 48-hour turnaround. That's never going to change.
Right.
I'm not going to make the exception. And just being
Right.
clear on that. And then that person gets to decide, is that going to work for me or not? And if not,
Yes.
then I always say, like, it's no hard feelings, but this is how we run a business,
Yes, 100%. Yep. Yeah. And like you said about making sure that the people you manage, they understand your leadership style. I'm very open with my team members from day one of starting to manage them. I really value proactive communication.
Mm,
I don't want to be the person following up with you nonstop. The more I elevate in my career and my role here at Franco, I can't be in the weeds on
yes.
everything. So I trust you and I hold you accountable for keeping me updated on things. So I really appreciate that my team members who I manage, they know that, and they're really great about proactive communication with me. And that helps on both ends, right? So, and if there's ever something where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about that, like I'll check in with them. We meet twice a week, or I mean, bi-weekly and as part of my leadership and management. I'm talking to them every day
Yeah.
anyway, whether it's virtual or whether we're in person, but they know I value that. So if you don't want me checking in with you on something, which I don't want to do, but I will if I have to, then please just be proactive with me.
Music to my ears. That is literally, as you're talking, like, this is me. I am like very
Yes.
much and that's the gain of the trust, right? And I think it's
Right.
because, as people who go miles a minute, right? Like you just need that proactive piece. And I always say that about visionaries too, because you see far out, right? You see
Yes.
that, and if people listening in, like if you're not that type of style, that's okay. It's just understanding what your style is so that you can set those clear expectations with others. Because I think I've talked so much about that on the podcast because communication is so key to leadership,
Mhm.
right? Like I love when I work with or have worked in the communications field, it's so great to be the communicator for everybody else. But then I always say, like, how do you apply that to your leadership, right?
Yes.
When you're giving a message and you're trying to make the message clear to the right audiences, it's the same kind of style when it's coming to your leadership, like your employees are
Right.
basically your persona and like
Oh,
your
yes.
audience and your avatar on that piece. So I think we've talked a lot about this, but I'd love for you to just, in your experience, how does a leader's transparency and empathy contribute to building trust? Like how, if you can elaborate any more on this, and maybe if you even have a situation even further than what you've shared that you think
Mhm.
that would be really helpful for the audience here.
I don't think you can have trust without having empathy,
Mm,
vulnerability, compassion. I mean, that's how you build trust with
love
people,
that.
right?
Yep.
And again, that doesn't mean that you have to spill everything. You need to share every detail about your personal life, but through my leadership and management journey, I've gotten more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm not an introvert, but I'm also not the wear my emotions on my sleeve type of person. So until I get to know you well, until I feel comfortable with you and trust you, I'm not bearing it all out there, right? Like, so I've had feedback that like, well, nothing phases Nikki, right? Like we're all like super stressed and super frustrated about that. And Nikki's just like cool, calm, and collected. And I'm like, you guys, I'm like dying on the inside, right? So once I learned, like, okay, like maybe I should start to show
Mm,
that a little bit more and show that things phase me too. Things bother me. I am wired to be very hard on myself, very, very hard on myself. So once I started learning that sharing that with team members, being open, being vulnerable builds trust. I got a lot more comfortable with it, and then they got comfortable doing the same thing, right? So I always used to feel like I don't want to make excuses, right? Like I'm not making excuses for anything. I own my stuff. I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm accountable, but it kind of made me, like I said, it made me a little more closed off and not as open from a leadership perspective. And I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
So I've adjusted. I've gotten more comfortable. I really think silver linings of this pandemic and learning how to work virtually and learning how to be more open, vulnerable, and saying, like, I can't do this right now. I've got a kid who I need to help with homework. Or, just everybody just getting more accustomed to like being at home. Those of us who are
Yeah.
parents, like my team gives me the same understanding and compassion as I give to them if something's going on from a child or personal or family, whatever it might be, right? But that's where that trust comes into play. And I always say, like, let me know what's going on. You don't have to give me all the details if you don't want to. Totally fine. But as long as I know, and as long as your teams know that you're going to be unavailable for a little bit or you've got to deal with this, no problem, right?
Yeah.
I think back to like 10 years ago, I would have never put on my calendar like kids doctor appointment, fun run for the school. I would have never done that. I would have like blocked it off, but now I'm open about it, right? Like if you want to know why I'm not responding to something, I've got Evan's ortho appointment on my calendar. So that's where like just becoming like more comfortable, right? And if I show that vulnerability and openness, if I show my team, yeah, I'm bothered by this too, right? But something that in my role as a leader, and something I recommend to other leaders too, is helping team members take a step back and understand why a certain situation might be stressful, why a client might be reacting in the same way. That's something that I really focused on my role of helping to understand and knowing those clients and understanding them more on a personal, professional level, so that if our team's getting like pummeled with requests and questions, or a client's cranky on a call, oftentimes I can say, I know why, and let's take a step back.
Mm,
And it's bigger than us. It's not that they hate you. It's not that they're going to fire us. They're not super mad at us, but like, I get what's happening in the background. So let's keep that into perspective and remember, oftentimes the stress or pressure that they're putting on us is because they're getting it themselves too.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, the being hard on myself, it is still a work in progress, but it helps me. And then it helps me to be able to impart that on my team, is like, you can look to me to be the person to kind of help understand the situation.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a couple of things that you said that I want to iterate is perspective. Out of all of what you just said, it's seeing different perspectives, not just the one tunnel vision that a lot of us have.
Yes.
Because we always have this one way that our minds think. But a lot of the things that I teach in my coaching sessions is like, well, let's give you 5 different perspectives so that you can really see, and then what one feels best for you. Because you know better than anybody, the person sitting in the shoes. But it's allowing someone to just see different perspectives of, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Or, oh, yes, I didn't think about that. And that's really important. I think the other thing that you said, which was really fascinating, is I'm still hard on myself, but I'm working on it. And I think that
Yes.
that's the reminder too to anybody, is that leaders aren't perfect. We think that leaders have it all figured out. A lot of times, I mean, we've all been put in, I don't know one leader that's been put into a role where they've already had 12 trainings on leadership before they took the role, right?
Right.
It's really kind of, you're getting trained as you go. And so a lot of leaders who are recovering perfectionists, who are type A, who have all these tendencies that just want it to go so well, is that they are really hard on themselves. And they're probably staying up late at night thinking about things. And they're probably overthinking of how you took something with their communication. And so I always say, like, I know the word is kind of getting a little big now, but giving yourself grace.
Oh,
But
gosh.
we
Yes.
talk a lot about that now, and I think it's still important, but I also believe that it's like giving that perspective. Like, okay, what is my leader going through? Like, oh, they have all of these other things on their plate. I'm one
Right.
piece of it.
Right.
Right. And I think it goes back and forth when it comes to leadership. Is it has to be also the person maybe not in the leadership role. Well, you're going to be next. So like,
Right.
how do you start to practice what you're seeing now so that when you get
Yes.
into that transition, it's a lot more smoother
Absolutely.
for you
Yes.
in that role?
Yeah, and I hope that kind of me modeling the leadership style that I have and hoping to impart some of that, and again, knowing that the people I'm kind of building up as leaders, they're not going to be the same exact leader as me, and that's fine. But I am really trying to model the good, right, whatever you want to call it, leadership style so that they can learn some things from me and infuse it with their own style and hopefully avoid some of the things that I went through when I was going through that really kind of sticky, messy middleness, right? And they may have to go through all that on their own, but because I've been through it, I can think of one of my team members specifically where she struggled with the same thing. And she's just like, I'm so used to doing. I'm
Yes.
so used to doing. How do I delegate? How do I do this? And because I've been through it, we've been able to work through it
Mm,
together. And I've been able to give her tips. She's applied those tips. She's come back to me and it's getting better. But had I
yes.
not gone through that myself, I don't think I would have been able to have guided her as
Yeah.
well.
And back to the vulnerability, like not saying, "Oh, yeah, it was a cakewalk for me."
Right. Yeah.
Like, right? Like it's really just being honest with that. So,
Yes.
one last question to kind of end today. So, this is from just like a question that we hear a lot is, okay, how can I maintain confidence when I'm constantly self second guessing my leadership? What are your
Well,
thoughts?
continuing to practice having those moments where you are giving counsel, you are coaching, guiding, mentoring, whatever your role might be. And it's just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Um, Prepping ahead of time, right? Like if you don't feel super confident about something, preparation is always helpful. Like role playing, like if you have to have say you're giving a report, you're delivering a report to a client and like some things are in the red, some things are in the green, you're not confident about it, you expect you're going to get some questions, prepare ahead of time, try to anticipate the questions you're going to get, prepare answers, and if you don't have
Mm,
an answer to something, you have to be okay and not mortified by saying, I don't have that answer right now, but I'll get it for you and I'll follow up with you. It's just going back to like remembering we're all human. The person on the other side of the screen is human. The person on the other side of the table is human. They've made mistakes just as you have made mistakes. So, going back to your point about perspective, when you put that into perspective, at the end of the day, if you don't have an answer for every single question that comes through on that reporting call, is the world going to end?
yeah.
Are they going to fire you? Again, no. But if you're prepared and if you kind of do your best to kind of position yourself in that confident way by preparing, by thinking ahead, by trying to get ahead of questions, but also being okay with, again, like I'll have to get back to you on that. That's honesty, that is humility, that is just being a human. And I hope most people would appreciate that and understand that.
I love that. And I think that that's a great way to look at it because I think even practicing scenarios, right? Like you're never going to have it all perfect until you're like, even when you're in the middle of it, you can practice, practice, practice. But I also believe that like even just trying and putting the reps
Yes.
in is key. Anything with confidence is putting the reps in and growing in that
Yes.
space. So,
Yes.
Nikki, to kind of wrap up, what is one thing that you would leave our audience with today?
Oh, goodness. You said it already. Give yourself grace.
Mm,
Give the teams that you work with, the clients, the customers that you work with, give people grace. This world is crazy. You never know what somebody might be going through, and maybe they're not comfortable or willing to be vulnerable. You don't know what's in the background. So that's another thing I always tell my team members. We don't always know what people are going through, and somebody might be having a really bad day and we won't know. Somebody could be sick in their family. They may have received bad health news. Who knows? But let's always start with giving people grace. And then on the flip side, take that advice yourself, which again is it's so easy for me to give other people grace, but then
yeah.
it's really hard. So it's same thing. Like you have to be your number one supporter. You have to care about yourself just as much as you care about the people in your life. Because if you don't, that directly impacts leadership, that directly impacts your ability to guide, teach, mentor other people. Because again, you got to give yourself that same grace that you're giving to others.
I love that. And then if someone wants to connect with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, or our website is franco.com. And I have a personal website, nikkilittle.com.
Awesome. Well, Nikki, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We will also put that in the show notes. So great to chat with you. I love everything about confidence leadership, but I also just still my heart. I'm a PR girl from Michigan State.
Yes.
And so I totally love chatting with people that are still doing this in their space and being experts. So thank you so much for being on today. And to everybody tuning in, we cannot wait to see what you do with your leadership.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. This was fun.
Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in to the Confident Podcast today. I know that you took away so many tools and resources that is really going to help you. And I hope that many of these things resonated with you. For me, I felt like I was getting mirrored in a lot of things that Nikki was saying, which is pretty beautiful because it's also great and a reminder and a reflection for me that there are many people out there who lead like me and that we're all trying to figure it out together. And the other thing is if you need support, please let me know. You can DM me at Lisa Tarkington Official on Instagram, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I would love to support you. And as I always say at the end of these podcasts and these episodes, continue to spread love and kindness to everybody that you meet, and have a great day. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Confident Podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, head over to leadconfidently.org for today's show notes along with discounts to our services. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram and YouTube at The Confident Podcast. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps more people discover the show. And hey, if you're feeling inspired to dive deeper, let's connect. You can find me on Instagram at Lisa Tarkington Official. Drop me a message and let's explore how I can support your journey to confidence and leadership. Remember, you have the power to choose confidence every single day. Keep showing up, keep striving, and keep believing in your potential. I'm cheering you on, and I'll see you next time.